أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد. We begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we praise Him because He is worthy of praise, and we ask Him to send His peace and blessings upon His last and final messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and upon His family and His companions and all those who follow Him and follow His sunnah and follow the models of the dear companions until the day of judgment. Ameen. So today, inshallah, our companion is none other than the mother of the believers, Salamah, radiyallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And every wife of the Prophet has the title al-Mu'mineen, mother of the believers, and that is from the Quran. وَأَزْوَاجُهُ أُمَّهَاتُهُم. Right? And his wives, meaning the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wives, are the mothers of the believers. So they have a very high status, and one of the wisdoms behind why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allowed the Prophet ﷺ to have so many wives was because they would take from him and learn from him and therefore spread his knowledge amongst the female demographic of the society. And Salamah radiallahu anha was one of the fuqaha, of the female fuqaha of the companions. She was a faqihah, she was a legislator, she was knowledgeable in Islamic law, and she was qualified to give fatwa. Her and Aisha radiallahu anha were probably the two most knowledgeable from the wives of the companion, from the wives of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Her name is Hind bint Umayyah. So Umayyah, the tribe of Umayyah, is the same tribe Muawiyah radiallahu anh is from, and it is a very noble tribe. So they are well known, so she has a high status in society. Her cousin is Khalid ibn Walid radiallahu anh. So she has a high status among the people of Quraysh. So, and as I just said, she's from Quraysh. So she's a Meccan companion, and she believed early on, her and her husband, Abu Salamah, who plays a really big role in her life. So she believes in the early time of Mecca, and she is among those who made hijrah to Al-Habash, to Abyssinia. So just to refresh our minds, before the Prophet ﷺ and the companions from Mecca made their immigration to Medina, there was another immigration prior to that to Al-Habasha, to Abyssinia. And the reason why the Prophet ﷺ sent them there was because there was a Christian ruler, Najashi, who was very well known, the story is very well known, and he was a just ruler. So a portion of the Meccan Muslims went there, and they spent a good decade there, if not more. And then when Al-Ahzab occurred, that's when they started to return. Because after that time, the Muslims had the upper hand now against Quraysh. They were more powerful than Quraysh for the first time. So they went back, and that's when the Prophet ﷺ was reunited with Ja'far ibn Abi Talib and other of the great Meccan companions. So she was one of them. But the group that went to Al-Habash, went to Abyssinia, part of them came back before the immigration, such as Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And Salamah and her husband Abu Salamah, they came back before the Prophet ﷺ went to Medina. And the reason is, one narration says that when Surah Al-Najm was revealed, a rumor spread where when the Quraysh, the pagans of Quraysh, heard the chapter, they all fell into prostration. Because Surah Al-Najm, at the end there's a sajda tilawa, a sajda for recitation. So a rumor spread that the pagans prostrated, and that the rumor was they became Muslim. All of them became Muslim. And this rumor spread to Abyssinia. So they thought, okay, now we can go back. A portion of them went back. Among them was Salamah radiallahu anha and her husband Abu Salamah. Now it's time for immigration, the actual immigration to Medina. When they were going, a lot of the tribes prevented their family members from going. Among them was Salamah. So her tribe came and they said, no way you're going. And they had a child at this time, Salamah. One narration it's Salamah, another narration it's Umar, who this happened to. The tribe of Abu Salamah, al-Mughira, the tribe of al-Mughira, they said, this child is our child. He's one of us. He's not going anywhere. They took him. And Abu Salamah went and did hijrah. So this is now Salamah separated from her beloved husband, who's in Medina, and from her child, who's now with her husband's tribe. This is her situation. And when she went through a lot of stress, a lot of grievance, until both of the clans felt sorry. Right? They said, okay, look, she's one of us. We can't do this to her. They gave her her child back, and they allowed her to do immigration and join her husband, Abu Salamah. So Abu Salamah, as I just mentioned, was really close to Salamah. And there is a narration that Salamah says, I heard from the Prophet ﷺ, he said that a woman will be with her last husband in this life. So if a woman has more than one husband because of divorce, because she was widowed and then remarried, she's with the last one. Now there's a difference of opinion on the authenticity of this, but just to give a little bit of perspective on who Salamah and the relationship between the two. So Salamah said, based on this, I promise you that if you pass away before me, I won't get married. And Abu Salamah said, and I tell you, if I pass away before you, get married. Again. To him, he couldn't bear his wife alone. And society that is really dependent upon one another. She couldn't bear that. Or he couldn't bear that. So he told her, subhanAllah, as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a little bit of foreshadowing. He said, if I die, get married. Now, this is early in the Medinan period. The great battle of Badr occurs, and Abu Salamah is injured, but he's not killed. He's injured pretty bad, but the wound heals, and he's not killed. Later, he goes on an expedition. The Prophet ﷺ sends him on an expedition. No battle occurred, but in the expedition, his wound reopened. And because of that, it led to his death. And he passed away. So Salamah, after going through her grievance, first by immigrating to Abyssinia and leaving her people, and then a second time, what happened before going to Medina, being separated from her family, and now her beloved dear husband passed away. And it is at this moment, or at this time, the Prophet ﷺ teaches the companions and says, whoever goes through a calamity, and says what Allah commanded them to say. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Right, in the Quran, Surah Baqarah. Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa khulufni khayrun minha. O Allah, reward me for my calamity and replace it with something better. And the Prophet ﷺ continues and says, whoever says that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace what the person lost with something that is better. So Salamah, hearing that, she said, and who's better than Abu Salamah? I mean, look at the sadness, the sorrow in her heart. What happens next? Abu Bakr comes and approaches her and says, I propose to you. She rejected him, Abu Bakr. Umar radiallahu anh comes and says, I'd like to propose to you. I'm asking your hand for marriage. And she rejects him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has it that the Prophet ﷺ came and asked for her hand in marriage. And this is such a big lesson for each and every one of us, as I'll get to inshallah once we get to the lessons. So imagine that. Imagine that. She says, who is better than Abu Salamah? Oh, there's someone better. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave her that because she said what Allah commanded her to say, and she believed in it as well. So she got something better than Abu Salamah. And she said the Prophet ﷺ is better than Abu Salamah. But when she got the news that the Prophet ﷺ is asking for her hand in marriage, she said, I mean, a lady like me doesn't get married. No one marries someone like me. I'm old, right? I have children. And it's said that at that time, she gave birth to her final child, Zainab, or one of her final children. Her final child, Zainab. So I'm old, I have children, and I'm very jealous. And a fourth one, she says, I have no wali. I have no man to come and marry me. How's that going to work out? There's a lot of challenges. So the Prophet ﷺ responds. And look at how beautiful the Prophet ﷺ is. He says, as for what you said, you are older than me, or you're old, I'm sorry. So she said, I'm old. So Prophet ﷺ said, I'm older than you. Look at what a beautiful response. I'm old, well, I'm older than you, that's okay. And he said, as for your children, don't worry about them. They will be taken care of. And the Prophet ﷺ, when he would call Zainab, her daughter, he would say, Zunab. So it's a way of kind of, how do you say in English? It's a way of, not a nickname, it's more of a spoiling her. Zunab. So Prophet ﷺ took that into his hands. As for your jealousy, I will make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, takes that away from your heart. She said, you have a lot of women. I can't deal with this. I'm a jealous lady. So he said, he acknowledged it. He didn't say, no, you have to deal with it. He said, he acknowledges it. And says, I will make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take that away from you. And finally, as for your wali, he said, none of your people will disagree for you to marry me. So he made a way out for every single challenge she thought, that came to her mind. And this is how the Prophet ﷺ teaches us. Look at how beautiful her response was to each and every one of her concerns. Finally, one major story of Salamah radiallahu anha is when the Sulh Hudaybiyah occurred. Now, we need a little bit of background here. This is around the 6th year of Hijrah. This is after Badr, this is after Uhud, this is after Ahzab, the Confederates. Now the Muslims, for the first time, as I mentioned, have the upper hand. And they are really thirsty. They are missing their hometown Mecca. And they know of the blessings of Mecca and the virtues of Mecca. And the Quran is coming and telling them this, the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, this is your legacy, this is who you are, this is the millah, the religion that you are following, the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam, the religion of monotheism. And it all started where? In Mecca. And they know the story of Hajar and Ismail. And they know all these stories and they're reading this, but they don't have access to that place. And they're born and raised there. They want to go there so badly. But after the Ahzab, the Prophet ﷺ and the companions go and they said, we're going to go do Umrah. And they go. On their way there, all of a sudden the Prophet ﷺ's mount, his camel, kind of stops and sits down. The Prophet ﷺ is trying to move it. Like, this is strange. This has never happened before. He's trying to move it, and it's not moving. It's just sitting there, and it's not budging. So the Prophet ﷺ said, this is something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He told his people, all right, unmount and put your tents, and we're going to stay here. It would happen that one of the delegates of Quraysh came. His name was Suhail. He came and said, Ya Rasulullah, or say, Ya Muhammad, you're not entering Mecca. It's not going to happen. And then the story goes on. They come to a truce with Quraysh. And what happens is the truce of Hudaybiyah, in which the Quraysh tells them, we will not let you in this year. You can come next year. But what we will do is we will come to a truce. We will stop fighting. This way the caravans can go and business can flourish. And from the Muslim side, the Prophet ﷺ side, that now we can utilize this peace to actually go and make da'wah. Now, you can imagine the companions. For the first time in maybe 19 years, they have the upper hand. 19 years after being exiled from their home, many of whom lost all their wealth, many of whom were separated from their family. And when they immigrated, they got sick and they went through poverty. And Medina isn't this really cool place. Medina was like the ghetto of Arabia. Literally is the slums of Arabia. No one goes there. And that's where they went. And a lot of the companions who immigrated got sick. It's a new environment. And for the first time, they have access back to their hometown. The natives of Medina have access to Mecca now. They go and now they're stopped. They are upset. They are so mad, especially Umar radiallahu anhu. He goes and says, Ya Rasulullah, are we not on the truth? Prophet ﷺ said, yes. And remember, this is the first time they are stronger. And Allah acknowledges this. In Surah Al-Fath, the 48th chapter, He says, if we were to let you in, you would be victorious. But among the people of Quraysh are believers who you don't know about. And if you enter, there is a good chance that you will accidentally kill those believers, and that will harm you. Rather, what this Sulh Hudaybiyah is, this treaty, is a fath. Inna fatahna laka fathan mubina. We have opened for you a great opening. And what was the result of Hudaybiyah, this truce? More people in the 2 years that there was the truce remained, more people entered Islam that 2 years than the previous 19 years. So it really was an opening. At that point, and I said, Umar radiallahu an is really mad. He's not going to let this go. And the companions are mad. Now, they passed the miqat going to Umrah. So now they're in their ihram. And the fiqh behind the ihram is that if you wear it, you can't remove it until you actually complete the nusuk, the rituals. And at this point, since they can't have access, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down the verses which tell them how to deal with this. Now you have to slaughter if you have sheep with you, and cut your hair, and then that's how you take off the ihram. And they refused. The companions refused to follow the Prophet ﷺ, to listen to him. And can you imagine that? The companions, these are people who previously in Uhud literally put themselves in front of the Prophet ﷺ, so that they can deflect the strikes of the enemies from the Prophet ﷺ. These are people who lost their lives, lost their limbs for the Prophet ﷺ. And to think that they would disobey him at this point is astonishing. So you can see the tension now. And the Prophet ﷺ got really upset. And he was with Salamah. And he didn't know what to do. So Salamah radiallahu anha said, go outside, call your barber, have him cut your hair. Once you do that, they're all going to follow. And he listened to her. Goes outside, calls his barber, tells him to shave my head. He shaved his head. All the companions saw this, right? And they started doing it as well. And they did it when they're upset. To the point where, because they were upset, they're stressed out, they're using extra strength, they started cutting each other. But they listened. And it's said that Salamah prevented a great internal tension from exploding. Salamah radiallahu anha. And that's why she's considered one of the fuqaha, the people of fiqh, of legislation. And she's also considered one of the wise female companions, radiallahu ta'ala anha. Salamah was the last of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ to pass away. And it said she was around 90 years old when she passed away. She passed away in the year 61 Hijrah. So the Prophet ﷺ passed away the year 11. She spent 50 years alone, because it was forbidden upon the mothers of the believers to marry after the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Because there's nothing better than that. It doesn't get better than that. They have the highest place in paradise. They can't marry anyone else. Because our goal is paradise. Our goal is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have attained the highest level. Right? So 50 years she was alone without a husband. And that adds to her struggle. Radiyallahu ta'ala anha. We have at least 29 authentic narrations from her, among which is fiqh rulings, which shows you her role in the legal aspect of Islam. Radiyallahu ta'ala anha. What are some lessons we can learn from her beautiful life? Number one is the prophets and the companions are our role models. And this goes beyond learning characteristics from them, learning, wisdom or knowledge from them. Part of it is looking at their struggles to inspire ourselves. Each and every one of us has their own story. And each and every one of us either has been tested, is being tested, or will be tested. And the way Allah tests us, based on His wisdom, is different. We all go through something. From some of us, it's a loss of a loved one. From some of us, it's financial hardship. For some of us, it's illness. For some of us, it's dealing with bad people. For some of us, it's our parents. For some of us, it's our children. We all have struggles. But no matter what your struggle is, I guarantee you could find a prophet and you could find a companion who went through something even harder. And when you look at that, you will become inspired. If they went through this, and these are people who I look up to, who I praise, who I love, then I accept that for myself. I will deal with it. And whatever the situation is, you have someone there. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ lost 6 children in his life. 6, and 2 wives. I mean, how much harder can that be? He was poor during, after he became a prophet. He lost a lot of his wealth. And he was weak, oppressed. And he had to leave. And he had to sacrifice all of that. So whatever we are going through, or will go through, or have gone through, look to the Prophet ﷺ, look to the companions, look to Salamah radiallahu anha for inspiration. I mean, some people, especially those who are born or native to America, and they marry someone, or someone who's native here and they marry someone from overseas. And you have this immigration process, and it's so complicated, right? Well, Salamah radiallahu anha went through something similar. It wasn't the customs or the immigration and departments of the visas or whatever they're called, but there was the tribal system, which prevented her from her husband and from her child. She went through that. So we look to her for inspiration when we go through hard times. If someone is widowed, right? Salamah, 50 years, and she's widowed. And if someone, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, and if someone has to leave their native home, so did Salamah. And if someone has to deal with a loss of a loved one, so did Salamah. So always look to her for inspiration. Number 2, sacrifice. And I really want to emphasize this, sacrifice. Salamah did not become a wife of the Prophet. She did not become a mother of the believers. She did not become one of the fuqaha of the Muslims. She did not become a person who Allah preserved her biography, and we are now talking about her 1400 years later out of nothing. She earned that title, that status, because of her sacrifice. Why did she do all of that? Because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It was because of her religion, her love for her religion, her love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She had to endure that. She could have said, I don't want any of this, I'm just going to stay with my people. And she didn't have to go through any of that. She would have been just fine. But she wanted Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And she gained that status, and she had to sacrifice to earn that love, that status. And we as Muslims living in the 21st century, in America, in the Western world, where it's all about give me, right? What I want, this is becoming a problem. It's becoming a big barrier between the individual and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can I sacrifice something? I don't want to sacrifice anything. And when people, one of the most common questions I see and I hear is, I'm having trouble strengthening my iman. Well, in order to strengthen your iman, some things have to go. If a person is doing a sin, that has to go in order to strengthen your iman. If you're not praying, well, you have to give up some of your time to pray. When Ramadan comes, you have to give up some of your physical strength, some of your desires. When it's time to give zakah, you have to give up some of your money. It's all about sacrifice. Why is sacrifice important though? Because sacrifice is a symbol, is a sign of your allegiance and love. You want to prove that you love someone, right? How do you do that? You have to show something. And whenever you show, whatever you give, there's a sacrifice there. You want to prove to someone that you're their friend? Well, when they call you and say, I need help with something, well, now you got to sacrifice. Right? If you want to prove to your husband or your wife that you truly love them, some things have to be sacrificed. Whether it's your own personal time, whether it's a little bit of your wealth, whatever it may be, it's all about sacrifice. And Salamah embodied that. She sacrificed so much. But what was the end result? She is the mother of the believers. Do you think Salamah regretted that? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not repay her for what she sacrificed? She repaid her and more. And the reward of the next life is even greater, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا فِي اللَّهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا ظُلِمُوا لَنُبَوِّئَنَّهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَلَا أَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. Those who immigrated for the sake of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to prepare for them, firmness or stability in this life. Meaning your sacrifice will not go in vain. He's telling them, when you immigrated, you left everything behind, that's not going to go in vain. Allah is going to replace that. And He did. And these companions were so wealthy by the time the Prophet ﷺ passed away and after that. I'm talking about in present day standards. They would be considered among the richest people of today. Az-Zubayr, I calculated his inheritance once, what he left behind. He left probably around $13 billion of today's time. That's calculating inflation and stuff, right? $13 billion. Uthman was extremely rich. Abu Bakr was wealthy and Umar was wealthy, but they gave everything away. Radiallahu anhuma. Abdurrahman bin Auf was extremely rich. And a lot of these companions were very rich, especially after these expeditions going out to Syria and Egypt and Persia. They gained a lot of wealth. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replace what they sacrificed? Of course He did, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lesson number 3, what it means to be patient. She couldn't have gotten through that except with patience. And the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, عَجَبًا لِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. The affairs of a believer is fascinating. He says, if a calamity befalls them and they're patient, that's better for them. And if blessings befall them and they are thankful, they're grateful, that's better for them. So he put patience. And the scholars said, our faith, the way we engage it is one of two ways. Either with patience or with gratitude. Because you are either dealing with a hardship that you need to be patient for, or you're dealing with what? A blessing that you need to be grateful for. She endured that. And we've all heard this. You got to be patient. Sister, you got to be patient. Well, it's easier said than done. How did she do it? That's the question. Because it's so easy. I mean, me as someone a preacher who talks about this, I don't like talking about patience and gratitude. Because it's easier said than done. When the time comes and you actually have to be patient, it's not that easy. But how do you attain that? There are many different ways. How did Salamah radiallahu anha do that? Well, one thing I'd like to point out, and this is an example that is given in Arab tradition. A person who was known to be very patient was asked by someone else, how are you so patient? So the person said, okay, let's play a game. I'm going to put my finger in your mouth, you put your finger in my mouth, and we're both going to bite down. And see who's first one's going to retract. Right? And they did that. And the other person eventually retracted. He said, this is too much. Right? He said, look, if you were to have waited one more second, you would have beat me. This is the mentality he has. Sooner or later, this pain is going to go away. It's going to end. And that helps ease it. And if you look at the tests, the trials, the hardships of Salamah, her hardships ended sooner or later. And she always gained more at the end than lost. So whenever you are doing something or you're going through a hardship, what it means to be patient is to endure just a little bit more because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing is waiting for you. And in fact, there's a hadith in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala laughs at the believer. They become really impatient and they don't know that the way out is right next, is just about to come. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being patient requires a lot. And the Prophet ﷺ describes patience as liya, as-sabru liya. And this is very eloquent because he describes salah as nur, as-salatu nur, was-sabru liya. Now nur is a light and liya is a light. What's the difference? Nur is a pure light, something like you see in the moon, the beautiful full moon that we have. Liya is like the sun, the light of the sun. It gives light, but it also gives heat. So when someone is going through patience, it's a liya. Yes, it gives you light. It shows you the way, but it burns. It burns inside. It's not easy. You have to endure it and know that, like Salamah, it is temporary. It'll come. There will come a time where it's done. But you will reap the rewards. You will reap the benefits, the fruits of your patience. And finally, the istirja. Really, I think the highlight of her story is getting married to the Prophet ﷺ. But what she did before that, when she said, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, Allahumma ajurni fi musibati wa khulufni khayran minha. We should all have this dua memorized. Because as the Prophet ﷺ promised, whoever says it when a calamity or a hardship befalls them, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace that with something better. Try it, and I guarantee you, you will see the results sooner or later. When do we say it? For any discomfort, for any hardship, for anything, no matter how small or how large. And scholars said that even when you remember something in the past, you can use it. So when you remember the death of the Prophet ﷺ, as he describes, the greatest calamity of my ummah is my death. The scholars said, like Ibn Taymiyyah, even if you remember the death of the Prophet ﷺ, you are allowed to say this. And you will get rewarded for it. And good will come to you, inshaAllah. So don't ever forget it. What does it mean? Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We belong to Allah. And to Him is our return. There are two things happening here. First of all, we acknowledge that we are under Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's authority. By remembering this, you remember that the one who decreed what is happening to you is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean? It means that this decree did not occur except that His wisdom is there, His knowledge is there, His compassion is there, His mercy is there. This is really important. Harder said or easier said than done. When you say that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we as Muslims, we believe that Allah is the most merciful. And therefore nothing that He decrees, nothing that He says, nothing that He does, nothing that He doesn't do, nothing that He withholds, nothing that He gives is done without His mercy. It is all about His mercy. And therefore when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests someone, we need to understand and acknowledge and internalize this, that He tests a person to make them better. That's what it is. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Now the sisters who come to the tafsir class, let's go ahead and make an advertisement. Tuesdays in English, 11 o'clock to 1. Please do join us. Now they know this. We've been talking about this for a while. I lost my chain of thought. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Thank you. Right? This is the faith. It is You alone we worship. It is You alone we seek help from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His relationship to us is what? Is by helping us. Sometimes He helps us with blessings, but sometimes He helps us with a hardship. And really, I'll end with this. Ibn Qayyim rahmatullah alayh, really I think the greatest scholar of spirituality. He says something. He says that something happened to him, and he went through an extremely hardship. And he said, at that time, I was able to make dua and feel the need for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that gave me so much happiness that I wish that hardship didn't go away. From how close he felt to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what it's about. So someone like Salamah, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course she was taking the spirituality from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then therefore she was utilizing her hardships to get herself closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning we are under His authority, and therefore we are under His mercy, we are under His wisdom, under His knowledge, under His compassion, and the list goes on. And we are returning to Him. That no matter what your hardship is, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that a thorn does not pierce your skin except that it's either expiating sin or giving you hasanat. Nothing that you do while a believer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, nothing that you do, nothing that you feel or go through goes unrewarded. You are paid for everything if you are patient. So if a person goes through a hardship, is not able to achieve something, not able to attain something, loses something, things don't go the way they want it to, well, guess what? We are returning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the mountains of good deeds you will find there for your patience and your gratitude, you will wish that your entire life was hardship. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our entire lives blessings, because we might not be able to handle that. But that's a reality. So whatever hardship you go through, remember, you're not going through it unrewarded. Just be patient, endure, and know that that fire will eventually turn off by default. The wood is going to burn out sooner or later. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us seek inspiration from the life of Salamah radiallahu ta'ala anha, and to make us among those who follow her example, and make us among those who learn from her lessons and help help us get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khair wa sallallahu alayhi wa Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.
لا إله إلا الله